I've been speaking to Jeffrey Epstein's brother, Mark. He believes his brother did not take his own life in the Metropolitan Corrections Centre in New York, that in fact he was killed. I asked him about when Jeffrey first told him he'd been accused of the sex crimes he was later convicted of.
Well, the first time he told me he was getting in trouble, that was back in 2006. He asked me to come talk to him. We were both in New York at the time, and he told me he was getting into trouble because he was with girls that were too young. He said he was stupid. He realized he was stupid, and he wanted me to hear it from him as opposed to, on the news or something.
What was your reaction when he told you?
Well, yeah, I was surprised. I didn't really say much because what's to say? I mean, he told me what was going on, and I just accepted that. And, I knew whatever he did, I believe in. Even though he's my brother, I always believe in, consequences and ramifications for your actions. So if he's going to get in trouble, he was going to have to deal with it.
And so what do you think happened to him then? He was arrested, he was in prison, and then he died. What do you think happened to him?
Well, when I first heard that he was dead, in the government report, it said that they notified me. They didn't notify me. I heard it on CNN. And it said Jeffrey Epstein was found dead from an apparent suicide, in his cell. And I figured, well, I had no reason to doubt it. I thought he decided to take himself out. I wasn't keeping track of, his case on a daily basis, but I knew that he was facing a potentially long term in jail, and I know he wouldn't want to live that way. So I just assumed, okay, there was no reason to doubt it. He took himself out, and I respected that decision. But then the next day, I had to go back to New York early to identify his body because I'm the next of kin. And then they did an autopsy, which they always do. And they both came out of the autopsy saying they couldn't call it a suicide because it looked too much like a homicide. And that doesn't appear in any of the records, or nobody talks about that the two pathologists, two highly qualified pathologists, said this looks more like a murder.
But there was a major investigation into his death, which concluded that it was suicide. Have you got any evidence?
Wait, I have to interrupt you there. They said there was a thorough investigation, but they've given no proof of that. It was never, as far as I know, it was never investigated as a potential homicide. Because if it was, there's a lot of things they should have done that were not done. So,
but who are you accusing? Who do you think might have killed him?
Well, I don't speculate. I'm not accusing by anybody willy-nilly, but if you, the way I look at it, if you were going to investigate this as a homicide, you would look at the facts. I try to stick to the facts. Now, Bill Barr came out and said that he was, it convinced him that it was a suicide because nobody went in or out of the tier. That completely forgets about the fact that there were 12 other prisoners on that tier that would not have to go in or out of the door he said he saw, that could have killed him, or potentially the guards that locked up the tier, at 10:30 at night. We don't know who they are. So the question is, who are they? Why, after almost 6 years, are they still unnamed? Were they really prison guards? So when you look at who are these people that are covering this up, or why are they making up these things? And you ask, who do they work for? Who would they be covering something up for?
You seem to be suggesting there was some sort of conspiracy. So who do you think might have been involved in your brother's death?
Well, I don't think that one of the prisoners did it on his own accord, because if that was the case, they would have found out who it was and prosecuted him. So if Jeff was just willy-nilly killed by another inmate, there's no reason for any cover-up. There's no reason for any for all this nonsense that's going on.
So and do you think your brother had information? Do you think your brother had information, knew
Absolutely.
Things about powerful people that would have embarrassed them, potentially led them to be in the same position as he was in prison, and that was the reason?
I believe so, yes.
And what about the situation we've seen?
Jeffrey mentioned he had dirt on people. He didn't tell me what he knew, but he said, he led me to believe that he had, dirt on people.
Did he tell you who he knew things about?
Well, in the 2016 election, we were talking about the election, and Jeffrey told me that if he said what he knew about the candidates, they would have to cancel the election. That's a quote. That's exactly what he told me. He said, if I said what I knew about the candidates, they'd have to cancel the election. He didn't tell me what he knew, but that's what he said.
Well, clearly Donald Trump was one of those candidates. Tell us
Correct.
about the relationship as far as you understood it. How close were your brother Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump?
They were very close. They used to fly in each other's planes. Donald Trump was in Jeffrey's office many times, and there's witnesses that could testify that they saw Trump in Jeffrey's office. So I don't know why he said he was never in Jeffrey's office. That's just a blatant lie. You know, I couldn't believe he actually said that because it's so provable that he was there.
And so what do you think Donald Trump is doing now in terms of his response to this?
I understand people trying to distance themselves from Jeffrey, or people that he was close with before, because he has a bad rep from the charges against him, and people want to stay away from that. I do understand that, but the people, they're not really lying about it so publicly. They're not, it's so sort of provable, and people are showing photographs of Jeff and Donald together. He was at his wedding, and even my mother and my aunts, Donald put them up in his hotel. He comped them at the casino in Atlantic City once or twice. But he did.
But to be clear, there is a difference between being photographed with someone at a wedding and being involved in sex with underage girls. You haven't yet, I don't think, given me any evidence to place Donald Trump in the category of offence that your brother was accused of.
Yeah, no, I have no evidence of that. No. He's saying I can either confirm or deny that. I wasn't there. I didn't hang out with them, in those days.
The whole world is talking about this. Donald Trump is in the UK this weekend, so the focus has moved here. The world is talking about your brother. Very few people met him, very few people knew him by comparison. Tell us what he was actually like.
Well, if you ask the people that knew him, he was a nice guy. He was very funny. He was intelligent, very intelligent. He was generous, and people liked being with him. He was very personable, and he built a great life for himself. But as he said, he was stupid. He ruined it by being with girls that were too young.
Some people watching this will be saying it wasn't stupid. It was disgusting. It was illegal. It was abusing children. Just finally, where do you see this saga ending?
I have no idea. But the thing I don't want to see, I don't want to see people just writing this off as a suicide, which it wasn't.